everyone. Welcome to the Hindu Current Affairs for Beginners session by Law Excellence IAS Academy. This is a unique initiative by Law Excellence IAS Academy in order to help the beginners in reading the Hindu newspaper. Here, what we do is we focus on the backgrounders mainly. Instead of focusing on the analysis of the article, if you look into the previous year prelims questions, there we can see that instead of asking about that article, here the main focus of the question will be on any institution. For example, 2 days ago we have seen about an article where there is mention of National Payments Corporation of India and Aadhaar payment bridge system. Instead of focusing on that entire article, the questions will be focused on the institutions and various organizations or various constitutional provisions that were continuously in use. So, our motto through this core video is to help the beginner clear prelims by making him aware of all the backgrounders of various institutions, organizations or any new terminology that is in news in order to help the student clear the prelims exam of UPSC. Now let's start our today's session. Before starting a session, first let us see answers for the questions from our yesterday's video. India is not a member in which among the following: OECD, NSG, Australia Group and Missile Technology Control Regime. We know that India has already been a member of these two groups, Australia Group and Missile Technology Control Regime. So the answer here is 1 and 2. It is A. The next question is, consider the following statements. Electoral bonds can be purchased only from specified SBI branches. Yes. And donations can be made through electoral bonds to any political party the donor is interested in. Yes. The donor can donate to any political party he is interested in, provided that the political party is registered under the Representation of People's Act of 1951 and it should not secure less than 1% of votes that were polled in the previous election to the Lok Sabha or State Legislative Assembly. So, as both the statements here are correct, the answer here is C, both 1 and 2. Now let's start our today's session. These are all the topics that we are going to cover in our today's video. And I'm remembering you again, here our motto is to focus on the backgrounders that were mentioned in the articles. So here we are not going to do any analysis, but analysis for editorial articles is very important, which we have been doing through our daily editorial enrichment program by our Dr. Rambabu sir. So this is important from the mains perspective, so please look into sir's videos for the editorial analysis. But when it comes to the other articles, what is important here is what are the institutions and terms and concepts that are in the news continuously, which has probability to appear in prelims questions. So our core video motive is to discuss on those things. So now let's start our today's session. Our first article is US circulates draft resolution on ASAT in Security Council. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of international affairs. From this article, from the prelims point of view, we should focus on two things that were mentioned here. One is about this UNSC 1267 Sanctions Committee and about this UNSC resolution of 2462 on terror financing. If we look into this article, the United Nations Security Council, even we should know about this UNSC, it has passed its first ever resolution in order to suppress the funding of terror groups. In order to suppress the funding of terror groups, the UNSC has passed a resolution and that resolution is known as 2462 resolution. Before looking into this 2462 resolution of United Nations Security Council, first we should know about this United Nations Security Council. United Nations Security Council is one of the 6 principal organs of United Nations. And this UNSC is charged with the responsibilities of maintaining international peace and security. This council consists of 15 members, out of which 10 are non-permanent and 5 are permanent members. And these 5 permanent members are Russia, UK, US, China and France. And these permanent members have veto power. That means while taking a decision, if any of the permanent member is not satisfied with that decision, then using their veto power, they can put on a technical hold to that decision. Once a technical hold was put on to the decision by any of the permanent member, then that issue cannot be brought into UNSC's notice for 3 more months. Only after 3 months, again that issue can be brought before UNSC. Whereas these 10 non-permanent members will be elected on a regional basis and they will serve for a 2-year term. And the presidency of this body will rotate monthly. Every month a new presidency will be coming, among these 15 members. Now let us look into what is this UNSC resolution 2462 on countering the financing of terrorism. According to this new resolution of UNSC, all the member states, they should establish laws and regulations related to this financing of terrorist groups or individual criminals, and these laws should consider this as a serious criminal offense. So all the member countries should make laws and regulations to make these terror financing groups or individual criminals as a serious criminal offense. And this new resolution is a combination of all the previous resolutions in order to create a strong effort against the terrorism. And according to this new resolution, all the member countries should create financial intelligence units in their countries. If a member country fails to implement this resolution, then that country will face UN sanctions. Now let us look about this UNSC 1267 resolution. This was passed in order to impose sanctions on the groups or an individual that is related to any terrorist activities. This was mainly created with an intention to impose sanctions on entities or designated individuals as terrorists if they are associated with Al-Qaeda. And if an entity, that is a group or an individual, if they are designated by this UNSC 1267 committee as a terrorist group or as a designated terrorist to an individual, then they will be banned from traveling and their assets will be freezed by the governments. The next article is PM didn't seek not for TV address, says the Election Commission. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of polity. The context of this article is the Election Commission has set up a committee to examine whether the Prime Minister's address to the nation is in violation with the Model Code of Conduct. A day ago, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in his speech, he has announced that India has successfully completed Mission Shakti, an anti-satellite missile test. So, in order to find out if there is any violation of Model Code of Conduct by the Prime Minister in his speech, the Election Commission has set up a committee to examine that. From the prelims point of view, what is important for us is we should know what is this Model Code of Conduct. This Model Code of Conduct are the guidelines issued by the Election Commission of India for the conduct of political parties and candidates during elections, and mainly to what that conduct is related to. it is mainly related to speeches. They should maintain this conduct while delivering a speech and on polling day and near the polling booths and with regard to their election manifestos and while these election processions and during with regard to this general conduct. These are the guidelines with regard to the speeches and their conduct near the polling booths and during the polling day and in their manifestos and during the processions and with related to the general conduct of the political party and the candidate. And this model code of conduct will come into force immediately after the announcement of election schedule. When it will come into force? This could be a possible question. This will come into force immediately after the announcement of election schedule by the Election Commission, and this will last till the end of electoral process, entire election process. So here this could be the possible question when it will come into force. This will come into force immediately after the announcement of election schedule by the Election Commission, and it will remain into force till the end of election process. The next article is pre-certification must for advertisements. Dear students, this article is from yesterday's The Hindu newspaper of Hyderabad edition, and we hear there is an important topic which we forgot to discuss yesterday. So let me cover it today for you. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of polity, and the subtopic here is elections. From this article, here there is mention of a committee known as Media Certification and Monitoring Committee. The Election Commission has set up this committee in order to check if there is any paid news, because during the time of elections, the political parties will pay the news channels or any other local channels to campaign for their political party. Due with their vested interest, they will do this paid news. So in order to monitor this paid news, the Election Commission has set up this Media Certification and Monitoring Committee at district and state level in order to monitor all the media that will come under the jurisdiction of this committee, that is within the district and within the state, in order to identify if there is any political advertisement in the news. What does this committee do? They will observe the trends and they will compile the reports, and they will give a daily report on all the advertising expenditure of a candidate. Every political candidate will do this advertising. So they will have a detailed report. They will compile a daily report on how much this candidate is spending on advertising, and they will also compile a report of all the paid news. The next article is US tracking debris from anti-satellite test. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of achievements in the area of science and technology. In our yesterday's video, we have seen about our mission Shakti, which is anti-satellite missile test. In our next article, we are going to see about these two again. So, the United States is tracking if there is any debris from this ASAT test. So now, first we should know what is this space debris from this article and how it is a threat. What is this space debris? Anything that is launched into the space will remain in the space almost forever unless it is brought down, or after a few decades or centuries it will slowly disintegrate. Otherwise it will remain in the space almost forever. So that is known as this space debris. So here the satellites which have been expired and who are no longer serving any purpose, and they will keep orbiting without any purpose in the same orbit where it was launched. Now it has got expired, but still it keeps orbiting in the same orbit without serving any purpose. That is known as a debris. So, all the inactive satellites, rockets and their parts will be known as these space debris. So, how is it a threat? See here, space debris is a threat to the active satellites because here it has been orbiting in the same orbit without any purpose, but now a new satellite was launched into the same orbit. Then there is a possibility of collision of this inactive satellite with the active satellite. So, this space debris will be a possible threat. That is the reason why the United States, which has put its America's GPS technology, it is scared that already China and Russia has developed this anti-satellite missile systems. What is this anti-satellite missile system? This has a capability to strike down, to shoot down an actively working satellite. So already China and Russia were developing their anti-satellite systems. So US is worried that it might affect its GPS based technology satellite. So it is tracking if there is any debris that was left from our anti-satellite test. The next article is Government Defense Move on Finance Act. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of polity. From the prelims point of view, what is important from this article is what is this Finance Act and what is this money bill, which is very important. Now let us see about this money bill. This money bill is defined under Article 110 of the Indian Constitution. So when a bill will be known as a money bill? A bill will be said as a money bill if it contains the provisions that are related to taxation and borrowing of money by the government and expenditure from or any receipt, that is revenue, to the Consolidated Fund of India. Then the bill that is related to these provisions will be regarded as a money bill. Who will certify this money bill? It is the Speaker. The Speaker will certify a bill as a money bill and the Speaker's decision is final. That means the Constitution itself states that the parliamentary proceedings and the officers responsible for the conduct of the business, that is the Parliament's business. Who is the officer here? Who is responsible for conducting the business of Parliament? It is the Speaker. Should not be questioned by any court. This is there within the Constitution. Then, where can this money bill be introduced? We said it is the Speaker whose decision is final. Which Speaker? It is the Lok Sabha Speaker. This money bill can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha, that too on the recommendation of the President. And it must be passed in the Lok Sabha by a simple majority of all the members present and voting. Later, it will be sent to Rajya Sabha for its recommendations. And the Lok Sabha might not consider these recommendations. Lok Sabha may reject if it chooses to. If these recommendations are not given by Rajya Sabha within 14 days, then that bill will be considered as it is passed by both the houses, that is by the Parliament. And one more thing what we need to remember here is all the money bills are financial bills. All money bills are financial bills, whereas all the financial bills are not money bills. For example, let us see a finance bill which will contain a provision that is related to tax proposals, that will be a money bill, whereas a bill, if it contains provisions related to taxation or expenditures and if it also covers other matters, will not be known as a money bill, but that will be considered as a financial bill. So here in this article, the government, the center has told the Supreme Court that the finance bill of 2017, which is certified as a money bill by the Speaker of Lok Sabha, cannot be questioned before the court of law according to Article 122, which says that the conduct of the business and proceedings of the Parliament cannot be questioned before the court of law. The next article is the shape of an urban employment guarantee. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of governance. As this is an editorial article, the detailed analysis of this article will be done by Dr. Rambabu sir in the deep video. From this article, now from the prelims point of view, what we are going to see is about two things. One is AMRUT and the other thing is Smart City Scheme. Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation. This scheme was launched in 2015 with an aim to build infrastructure. Here the core focus is to establish infrastructure so that this infrastructure will provide the required network and water supply. A sewage network. What network it is? It is a sewage network and water supply for transforming the urban areas. Here, this program is aimed mainly to ensure that the focus of this program is that every household should have access to tap water with an assured supply of water and also a sewage connection. And the other thing is, it is to increase the amenity value of cities by developing greenery and well-maintained open spaces like parks. So, to increase the facilities, the availabilities of facilities and to reduce pollution in the cities by switching to public transport or by constructing the facilities for walking and cycling. This is the main aim of this Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation. To transform the urban areas, this program was launched. Now let us look about this Smart Cities Mission. This program was launched by the Ministry of Urban Development with the collaboration of all the state governments. It is launched by the Ministry of Urban Development in order to develop 100 cities in the entire country and to make them citizen friendly and sustainable. We know what is meant by sustainable. So how these cities will be selected? These smart cities will be selected through a city challenge competition, and these cities will be developed as satellite towns. These cities will be developed as satellite towns of larger cities, and then they will be modernized as the mid-sized cities. And this smart cities program has 8 critical pillars. And if we look into these 8 critical pillars, it is smart governance, smart energy, smart environment, smart transportation, smart IT and communications. It should have smart buildings and it should have smart hospitals and it should have smart education. These are all should be comprised by a smart city. These are all the 8 key pillars of India's smart city program. The next article is dangerous precedent. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of international relations. If we look into the backdrop of this article, recently the United States has declared that this Golan Heights, the disputed area between both countries, Israel and Syria. So US has declared that it is Israel's territory. So from the prelims point of view, what is important for us is what are all the new locations that were in news is very important. There could be a possible question that recently Golan Heights, the area Golan Heights is in news with regard to which of the following countries. They can give us 4 options saying that Israel, China and Brazil and France. So the answer is Israel. So there could be a probability of asking the question that is in news. If we look into the previous papers, this is a trend that was being followed. And now let us look into the history of this Golan Heights. This Golan Heights was part of Syria until 1967, when Israel has captured this area during a 6-day war, and it has completely annexed it in 1981. So Syria is now demanding the return of this territory, saying that this annexation is not recognized internationally. Syria tried to regain this area in 1973 through a war known as Middle East War, but it failed. Later, in both Israel and Syria, they both signed an armistice. What is this armistice? Both the sides will stop war, they'll sit and talk. Here they are not ending the war. Only thing is, this armistice is facilitating a dialogue between both the countries. So in 2000, later Israel and Syria, they had this highest level talks regarding the return of this Golan Heights to Syria, but those talks failed. Now US has declared that this Golan Heights belongs to Israel. So for us, from the prelims point of view, we should know the location of this Golan Heights. The next article is Power in Space. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of Science and Technology. This entire article is dealing with this Mission Shakti, which is a joint program of DRDO and ISRO to launch an anti-satellite missile to shoot down an active satellite in the lower Earth orbit, which is located at an altitude of up to 2000 kilometers from the surface of Earth. Dear students, in our yesterday's video, we have clearly seen about this Mission Shakti and also about this anti-satellite missile system. And now for the analysis of this article, please look into the deep video by Dr. Rambabu sir. The next article is New Loan Pricing Scheme May Be Put Off. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of Economy. See, if we look into the backdrop of this article, the Reserve Bank of India has proposed a major change to the way how banks are pricing their loans, how they are charging the interest for the loans they are giving. Here, the Reserve Bank of India has proposed that why not banks link these interest rates that were being charged by them on different loans, categories of loans like car loans, home loans. Why can't they link these interest rates with an external benchmark rate instead of using internal benchmark? What is this internal benchmark, and regarding what this RBI is saying? Till now, these car loans and home loans, all the loans that were being given by the banks were related to, they were linked to the internal benchmark, which is the marginal cost of funds based lending rate. This is the rate below which a bank cannot lend to its customers. This is the interest rate. This is the minimum interest rate below which a bank cannot give a loan to its customers. So why the Reserve Bank of India is asking them to take this external benchmark rate? Because recently the Reserve Bank of India has reduced the repo rate. Repo rate means it is the rate at which these banks can borrow money from the Reserve Bank of India. So now if the repo rate is decreased, that means they are getting loans at less interest rate. Then these banks should pass on these benefits to its customers, which is not happening. And this passing on the benefits due to the repo rate to the customers by the banks is known as monetary transmission. So this monetary transmission is not happening because every bank will have its internal benchmark rate below which they cannot lend to its customers, and that internal benchmark rate is this MCLR. That is the reason why even though the repo rate is decreased by the banks were not passing on the benefits to its customers. So now the Reserve Bank of India is saying that link their interest rates with external benchmark instead of this internal benchmark. So, and RBI has also given them 4 options to set any of these as its external benchmark rate. Those 4 options are, one is set either this repo rate as a external benchmark rate, or a 91-day treasury bill, or a 182-day treasury bill, or any other benchmark interest rate that is produced by Financial Benchmarks India Private Limited. This is an organization. If they fix any external benchmark rate, you can use that. So they have given these 4 options to the banks. And the deadline to take up this external benchmark rate and implement it is from April 1. But this has been postponed. This is what is this article saying about. The next article is Data Ownership, a Bone of Contention. This article comes under GS Paper 3 under the topic of Economy. This article is dealing about a tussle between 2 bodies. One is the National E-Commerce Policy, Draft E-Commerce Policy that was submitted by the Task Force of the Commerce Ministry. This task force of Commerce Ministry has submitted this National E-Commerce, that is the draft National E-Commerce Policy, and now it is open in the public for its comments. In one of its recommendations, this task force has stated that the data of these online companies that were being operated in India, regarding the data related to the citizens of India, that should be stored within the territory of India, and also these citizens will have a complete right. They have the right on their data. That means this data cannot be utilized without the consent of the citizen. There is one recommendation like this in the draft National E-Commerce Policy. So now these e-commerce companies, what they were saying is, we are the people who are investing the capital and resources to collect this data. So it is not correct to say that the entire data belongs to the citizens. We shouldn't say that citizens will have the right over their data. So from the prelims point of view, this is not of much importance for us, but what is important for us is we should know about this DPIIT, the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. The previous name of this department is Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. Now this is renamed as Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, and this functions under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. The responsibilities of this is to look into the promotion of internal trade, including a retail trade, and to look into the welfare of traders and employees, and look into the matters that are related to facilitating the ease of doing business in the country, and it will look into the matters that are related to startups along with the previous responsibilities of the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. The next article is third-party motor cover rates to stay. This article comes under GS Paper 3 under the topic of Economy. From this article, let us see what is this third-party cover. Here, there are 3 parties who are involved, out of which one is the insurance company and the other person is who has got this insurance, who insured, and the third party is the person who will get benefit, not even this insurance company or the person who has this insurance. If this person who has insurance, if he does any accident to this third party, and if there is any damage or death to this third party, then there is an act known as Motor Vehicles Act. According to this act, it is a liability of this insurance company as well as the insured person to pay insurance to the death of this person or any damage to the vehicle of this third party who is not insured. This is known as third party motor cover. Previously, there is an upper limit, like in case of death it is 10 lakh rupees and in case of any damage it is 5 lakh rupees. But recently, amendment of this bill has changed this. It has removed this cap and it has made it unlimited. The next article is Israel unveils world's longest salt cave. This article comes under GS paper 1 under the topic of geography. From this article, what is important for us is just know where is the world's longest salt cave. It is in Israel. And the name of this cave is known as Malham. Now let's look into our today's practice questions. The first one is marginal cost of lending rate refers to, and the next question is with regard to this Golan Heights. Try to answer these questions and in tomorrow's video we'll see the answers for these questions. Thank you.